Well, I'd like to welcome you, Donna, to the East Coast Fashion Summit. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. I'm so glad you could make it. You have been doing this fashion thing for a really long time. You're such an accomplished interviewer, podcaster, moderator, and you even own your own biz. I know you're a busy woman. So a lot of people might not know, though, that you trained in fashion hair and makeup, which I was like so excited to see. And just wondering if you could let people know, how do you go from hair and makeup and fashion into podcasting and interviews and being in that side of fashion?
It's true. I have worn a number of hats over the years. You know, professionally, I often used to say, quoting my good friend Karen, that I have a professional deficit disorder because so many career paths look so interesting that I am easily attracted to many things at once. But I do have a background in the beauty industry. I was a fashion hair and makeup artist, and with that, I was doing that in the early 2000s. And that was right as the world was starting to become aware about the ingredients in a lot of our personal care products. David Suzuki had come out with the Dirty Dozen. In 2006, my son, who was 2 at the time, he got diagnosed with a form of pediatric cancer called a Wilms tumor. And he's fine. He had his 16th birthday in September, but a health crisis makes you kind of look at your world a little bit differently. And that experience inspired me to start a company called Green Beauty. I was one of, if not the first, to open a digital retail space that was dedicated to all natural, non-toxic products, but that had to have the efficacy of working, because I felt that was part of a gap in the market.
Right.
Fashion and beauty are two sides of the same coin. Because I had the advantage of being one of the first with this sort of concept, I was blessed with a lot of media opportunities. I'd always done performing, recreationally. My formal education is in film and art history. So moving in front of the camera that way as a spokesperson for my business was a really easy transition. And when I decided to transition out of that business, it was the media part that really, really resonated with me, something that I'd sort of been getting almost like a life internship on throughout so many areas of my professional life, and decided to take all of that knowledge and love of media and move that into podcasting and other moderating and interview opportunities as one of the many hats I continue to still wear.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know all that. Wow. So I know that being an entrepreneur and always finding all the hats and loving all the lanes it's very demanding. But where does all this drive and passion come from? Were you always so, or?
You know what? I mean, I think I've always been an ambitious person. I've always loved being busy. I think I have this metaphor of, if we all sit at the dinner table of life and we all feel overwhelmed when our plate gets full, most of us have like a traditional dinner size plate. I can manage a platter. I have some people in my life who have espresso cup saucers. So I've always kind of thrived with the juggling of things, of the spinning of the plates. So, where does that come from? I don't know. I think it's just kind of part of who I am. And if we listen to, our little inner voices, call it our conscience or our soul, or just take time to see what's working and what makes us feel good in the moment, I think it can really help direct us in terms of how we position and create our professional lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Get us driving where our natural mind takes us.
Yeah.
I was wondering too, has COVID had a big impact on your day-to-day?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of work that went poof, because people, just
Oh,
people weren't gathering the same way as so many people in the fashion and other industries have experienced. I do work with CAFA, and that event has had to reschedule and pivot and postpone. One of the things that wasn't a big shift was I've always worked from home, so that that wasn't something I needed to adapt to. And I think, like so many of us, I've gone in waves of being super energized and wanting to look at silver linings and how can I use this time to be creative and accomplish things, to being quite, drowning in malaise and just, wondering how to keep going. And it's been a challenge, I think, for everyone. And I've certainly experienced that.
Yeah, it's been a ride for sure. Lots of ups and downs.
Yeah.
You've interviewed countless people in fashion, and you're on the pulse of fashion yourself. So how would someone with your extensive knowledge in this industry define fashion?
I think, and thank you for that. You're making me blush. You're being very kind. I think,
Got a lot.
I mean, fashion to me is the business of the commodity of apparel. It is. And with that, I mean, the creative genius that goes into that. It is the artistic nature that goes into that. It is the very complicated business structure that goes into that. And I think the twin sister of fashion is style. And that's how we as individuals take the apparel and use it to create our own identities, statements, creative outputs as individuals, building on the creativity of the people who work in the fashion industry.
Yeah, that's cool. And what is your favorite part of working in this industry? Because you could probably take your media, all of your media, all of your abilities there and go anywhere with it. Why fashion?
Oh, I love fashion so much. Like I'm one of those people who loves getting dressed in the morning. Like, what do I want to feel like? What do I want to communicate? Like who do I want to be when I get dressed today? So I love clothes. I love them. I always have loved them. I remember being in grade school and begging my mother to drive me home so that I could change my socks, because you could see them and they weren't matching my outfit the way I felt they should. So I love clothes. So being able to work in the industry, because I'm not a designer, I am only a consumer of the fashion industry in terms of, the beautiful clothing and accessories that designers create. So being able to connect with them and talk to them about their journey and what drives them, and learn about their lives before they became part of the fashion industry, and be able to connect some of the dots that speak to, the person they are and how that impacts their work is an honor and a privilege. So
cool. So you're in love with the clothes and you're in love with talking to people. So it went right together.
Yes, that is exactly right.
How working in the Canadian fashion industry today from maybe when you first started out? Have you noticed big shifts in Canadian fashion?
I think one of the most exciting shifts is the appetite and the affection for our local fashion industry, and by local I mean Canadian, is ever growing. I think there's more and more interest and excitement in getting to know who our Canadian brands are, who our Canadian designers are, not always being seduced by the sparkle of a global, more well-known brand, and taking the time to really discover who we have here is something that I think has really shifted. Just watching that awareness and affection grow, it has been one of the most exciting things about being part of the industry.
That's so beautiful. I love it. And would you say is your greatest source of inspiration?
Oh my goodness. I love I mean, for me, when it comes to fashion, part of the inspiration is like, how do I want to feel that day? And I mean, I love to be a chameleon. I wouldn't say I'm a very risky fashion person, but I love to be able to express different moods through my clothing. So for me, using it as an extension of how I want to feel that day is really exciting. And inspiration, like there are so many places I love to pull it from, be it from the amazing, designers or interviewers of the past. Getting to interview Jeannie Becker was such an amazing opportunity, and she is a legend and an icon, as anyone in Canadian fashion knows. I love staying on top of, what else is going on in the world in terms of pop culture and music and film and theater and politics and social, how society is shifting and growing, because those fashion and all of those things have a dance together. We don't design in a bubble. People don't dress in a bubble. So what else is going on that makes it, that is impacting the way we dress and the way designers design? That interplay just fires me up. I love it.
That's great. So I know you probably through the years had to put some time into things that, weren't really the best things to do. We all wear those hats that we don't like.
Oh my, yeah.
So maybe would you mind sharing a story with our viewers about a pivotal moment in your career that stands out where you felt like you were finally exactly on the road you were meant to be on, and maybe how it made your success there just so much sweeter?
Well, one moment that stands out in that kind of context is when I started being the fashion columnist for CBC Radio here in Toronto. And going into an institution of such credibility, sitting behind the mic with, that CBC logo on it, and the ripple effect of that was definitely a moment that really was a pivotal shift for me. There was, I'd started the podcast already, and saying that you were, the host and founder of a podcast called Fashion Talks was cool. But as soon as I said, and I'm the fashion columnist for CBC Radio, that all of a sudden made people's eyes open a little bit bigger. And it's something I'm very proud of.
So cool. Yeah, that would be a nice little fluff moment.
It was very, very nice. And I think it's, our careers are building blocks, right? And having those little gems where you just sort of need to take it in and say,
enjoy.
This is enjoy and acknowledge, this is like, I didn't, I pitched them the idea. I met with the producer, there was, it didn't fall into my lap. These are things you have to go after.
Yeah, that's great. That's good advice. I hope everyone's listening. Building on that, what do you think are some of the most important skills that you feel are necessary for a successful podcasting career such as yours?
It might sound like hyperbole in that it's just, kind of typical, but you have to be a really good listener. If you are not paying attention, because there's a lot of prep that goes into doing an interview, be it for a podcast or for another kind of opportunity. I do a lot of prep in terms of researching who I'm talking to. And sometimes if the opportunity is available, I'll do a pre-interview call with them. So I always learn something new and then kind of can dig into that a little bit more, because I like to try anyways to make sure that I'm asking thoughtful questions and maybe things that this person hasn't had the chance or doesn't usually get asked about. So really paying attention to listen to what they're saying is the only way that you're going to have that really dynamic and authentic exchange. Because you can't just be focusing on your own questions. You need to be listening to their responses too, because they might say something that you hadn't heard before, and you can kind of pivot the conversation a little bit. Yeah. So there is a skill, I think, in having, I feel like I'm always thinking and listening at the same time. Like it's almost like there's two muscles, that, rub your head and pat your stomach kind of thing, where you're trying to do two contrary things at once. Because I'm thinking about where I want the conversation to go, but still need to be actively listening about what is happening in the moment. And that is I think a really important, skill to be able to muster. It's certainly one I've honed over the years, as well as being able to think on your feet, be able to deal with unexpected situations in the moment. I don't do any post work, so I like to keep it spontaneous. So whatever is said is what's going to end up in the podcast, and that's definitely adds another layer of adrenaline to what's happening.
Yeah, because you're not going back.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you usually? I know you're a researcher. I can tell, but. So, what's maybe your process to keep up to date on fashion things and people, so you know who the best people to interview are right now, or you want to talk about something specific?
I love checking out Business of Fashion. I check out, Daily Digest and what they're doing all the time. I definitely keep an eye on social media because it's not just about who I know, it's who I don't know. So who are the up and coming designers I don't know? Who are the people outside of my immediate circle that are doing amazing things that I don't know about? Who's being written about in Fashion Magazine, in Odessa's column, or in Flair, or in Vogue? Who are the Canadians that I didn't even realize were Canadian because they're living in another part of the world? So there is, I think you really do need to be paying attention, because it's very easy to get stuck in your own lane. And we need to be thinking about, like, where are the BIPOC designers? Where are the LGBTQ plus designers whose voices are not prevalent in the industry that we need to make sure get heard?
Oh, I love that you just said that. That's so important, especially right now, more than ever. So, yeah, that's great. And that goes to work ethic. So I was going to ask you a question about work ethic as well. So do you believe in keeping your work ethic within fashion and in the media? Do you believe that there's a different type of work ethic in this industry, or do you think just work hard, same as everywhere?
I think it's work hard, same as everywhere. I think we reap what we sow. So the more effort you put into something, the greater chance of the success you're dreaming of that will come out of that. And that's not to say that I think we should be workaholics. I think we need to have time and space for family, for friends, for fun, for reflection. But I don't think there is anything unique about the fashion or the fashion media industry that wouldn't apply to professional sports or politics or banking or any other area that people aspire to their goals in. I think it's about staying focused, and also in tangent with that is maintaining good relationships. I think in every industry, but certainly my experience has been in the fashion industry, that maintaining and growing your relationships is an incredibly important part of working and succeeding to whatever degree you dream of in the industry.
Right, that's great. What's a little gem of your background that people may not have any idea about, or that they'd be really surprised to hear? I know we went through a couple already.
The makeup artist one is, and the beauty side is always fun. I'm the mother of two. I had home births with both my kids. So as well as all of the fashion stuff whirling around me, I also have two humans that I am raising with my husband. So there's that. The other thing that comes to mind is I took a lot of time off in my education. So when I completed, high school, I took a year off, did a year of university, took another year off, completed university. So I am by no means a straight arrow example of study this, get this job, achieve this thing. I really am a, meandering path. And that's okay. You can, there are many different ways to achieve many different things. And mine was not a straight line in any way whatsoever.
That's cool. Most of us are all over the place and eventually get there, which is, good to remind the kids coming behind us. It's okay. You don't have to know everything today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My son's in university, so I'm reminding him, you know what? No pressure. You'll learn eventually who you are, and you'll change 100 times.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's go into the future. What do you think the future of media and fashion, that beautiful marriage, is going to be in the next maybe 5 to 10 years? Do you have any predictions?
From a purely fashion point of view, I think, sustainability and local economies are going to become even more important. And people, sorry, I have my two kittens are behind me and they're jumping all over the place. Look at this little button.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Sorry, distraction, but they're like tickling my back.
This is hilarious.
It's 2020, right? I think for the future of fashion, it's a bit of a reboot, and we're seeing, even the big houses say like things have got to change, be it like inventory management or the fashion calendar or, the volume at which things are produced. So I'm excited to see there being a global appreciation for some big changes that need to happen. I think we'll start to see the ability for more up and coming designers to do smaller runs, and the pressure to explode won't be as great because people will be looking for more individual pieces, more custom pieces. They won't mind that it's done with a bit of a weight because they know they're getting something that they're really going to love, that they'll want forever. There's a great organization here in Ontario called Inland. Yeah. And they've just launched an online environment. And one of the things I love about what they say on their site is think of fashion as buying art. Yeah. And not that I think everyone is going to say, oh, well, my t-shirt and jeans that I wear every day is not necessarily a piece of art. But I love that the ethos of that is saying, think of it as something you value and that you want to take care of and that you want to have for a long time. And I think that is something that became lost in our, fast fashion economy. Is fashion started to be seen as something that was disposable and that was, not to be kept, that we could have like all of these different outfits all the time. So having that more conscious mentality about our clothing, I think is something we're going to see more and more of. I think from a media perspective, I'd like to think that we're going to start to see more interest in the people who make our clothes, that there will be more, documentaries on designers, that we'll see more opportunities to understand the players in the industry, the history of the industry, the current state of the industry, and kind of dig into, not quite what fashion television was in its heyday, but also not dissimilar in the sense that there was something kind of regular that kept people excited about what was happening. Because fashion's not going anywhere. Like, it's certainly in a very interesting place right now. COVID and 2020 has certainly decimated the industry, be it from a cash flow or a supply chain or an inventory management point of view. But every storm runs out of rain. So this will pass, and things, we will see fashion become something we talk even more about, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited about that. I like more conscious of who we're buying and why. Yeah, I love that plan. So I know you mentioned a couple, but what are some of the tips and tricks that you use to keep yourself in self-care mode and stress-free and able to balance the platters you like to carry? What are some of your tips and tricks that you could offer to some of our viewers, maybe, who are still...
I don't reinvent the wheel. Like, I value my sleep.
Sleep is good.
I make sure I move my body every day, be it for a walk or, a workout at my kitchen table or at a small fitness studio that thankfully has been able to reopen. I make sure I have time for my friends and family. I'm an extrovert. I get a lot of energy from those connections and seeing them in person when and if I'm able in this time. So a lot of what we hear all the time, like the rumors are true, drink lots of water. I've started journaling. I find it really helpful just to like keep, stress at bay. And sleep's important.
It's really, yeah, you're right. First though, don't we?
Well, it's so easy to not see the value in it, right? But it's when our body heals, it's when our stress gets managed. Like, it's such an important part of taking care of ourselves. And I think if you are someone who works in an industry like fashion, where it's a lot of adrenaline all the time and the pace can be very, very fast, and you're problem solving and doing a lot of things on the fly, as so many people in the fashion industry do, that needs to be balanced with slowing down. So I have become a big proponent of, some 10 minutes of quiet meditation and getting my sleep and moving my body and doing things I enjoy, as well as the things I enjoy that are work.
The rest can wait till tomorrow.
I often say we are not saving lives. Like,
right? Facts.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a guest or an interviewee that was really difficult or really rude? And if so, how did you handle that?
So I wonderfully have not had anyone who is particularly rude or difficult.
Good.
But I did have two guests, who shall remain nameless, who had just come off they were doing a bit of a book tour. And they were on the podcast. It was a public recording, actually. So there were people in the audience listening, and they were so hungover and they were so tired that getting answers out of them was a real effort. And when that happens, what I find is that's when it's time to like kind of up the energy and turn on the charm and lob really easy questions that you can kind of help prompt them. Like, when that happens, you're there as their lifeboat, not as, the one pushing them off the plank. So
right.
that was really challenging, but I don't mind telling you that it was such a challenging conversation that I ultimately didn't air it. It was not a very it was not a very engaging conversation from my guest participation. And I just thought, you know what, like, this is not what I want represented on the platform. So it ultimately just never aired.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not valuable for my listeners. There's no point in putting it out there.
And it wouldn't make them look good either. Like, truth be told, like, for your own protection, did I not air this?
For them. That's great. That's really, all the future podcasters need to know. And have you noticed since COVID,
mm-hmm.
have you noticed any new trends in podcasting? There's more and there's more lists and the ears are on. So what have you been noticing?
I've definitely noticed, particularly in the fashion space, that there are a lot of new podcasts. The one I've been listening to recently is, I think they're just calling it Vogue in the 90s. It's definitely in partnership or through the Vogue platform, but it's talking about fashion in the 90s specifically. And it's got all sorts of designers from that time that they're interviewing, and models and stuff like that, kind of capitalizing on that heyday. Yeah. So seeing, I think podcasting started as something that was kind of niche and independent. And now we're seeing more and more, established media platforms get into the game. The other thing I've noticed, certainly not necessarily in relation to COVID, but that I've seen in the past, year or so, is lots of fashion brands are doing their own podcast, not necessarily to try and be, you know, number one on iTunes and gain like a bajillion listeners, but as a way to deepen the storytelling and the relationships they have with their existing clients. So like Dior has a History of Dior podcast. That's really interesting. That really, I've never seen them promote it. It's something that's there. Maybe they do something in store or whatnot. So the thing with podcasting is the ocean is huge. Like there are so many cool podcasts to listen to. There's too many for me to even take in the ones that I keep track of sometimes. And the cost to get into it is certainly more affordable than trying to start a video platform or whatnot. But because the ocean is so big, getting noticed or being kind of strategic and clear on who your listener is and how you're going to find them is an ever increasingly complex puzzle that I think anyone in the podcast game is trying to think of.
The Rubik's Cube, trying to figure
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, it's an ever-changing dynamic watching, you know, your analytics and what the algorithms do and the different distribution platforms that are coming up, and seeing now like even different what were predominantly television media outlets have like podcasting arms, either to promote either to build on the properties they have already, or bringing in independent content into that roster and using it as part of their library. So I think podcasting, and I say this not just because I love it as a medium, but I think it is a content platform that is here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's growing crazy right now. So it's very exciting. What is the one thing you would tell someone just starting out, either in fashion media or podcasting, like either way, to avoid? Like, don't do this. Don't make this mistake I made.
I haven't made this mistake, but I've seen others do it, and it's don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Like,
amen.
It's really very simple. Like what I think everyone should do, and well, shoulds are so hard. Should yourself, but something that I have experienced. Like I didn't grow up in Toronto. I didn't have ties to the fashion industry. I built my relationships as someone who came here and wanted to work in the industry. So absolutely, building your network is one of the most important things to do when you're just starting out, or if you're pivoting into it, or no matter what you're doing. Maintaining those professional relationships in a way that is really genuine and generous is exceptionally important.
Yeah, that's great advice. You just come in with all the nuggets.
Sometimes I have good days.
Here on a good day, I'm sure you have all good days. What about the other side of it? And I think you answered this already, but what is the one piece of advice you tell them to start doing right away? And I think you're saying build your network, right?
Build your network. Absolutely. 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 Whether you're a designer or you want to work in PR, or you're a makeup artist or you're a photographer, or, want to have your own, content platform, there's going to be other people starting out right when you are. So find your peers, support and grow together. Don't be afraid to, seek out a relationship with someone who has perhaps got experience ahead of you, and don't ever be dismissive of the people who are also coming up behind you.
Right.
We are always stronger together, and in the creative industries, I think 2020 has proven that's more important and relevant than ever.
Absolutely. Don't forget where you came from, and don't forget to pull someone up from behind. Yeah, that's all. See, you're all about the love, Donna.
You know what? It sounds cliche, but good things come when you are genuine and generous. Like they just do.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy to want to hold your cards close to your chest and not share, and come from a place of fear where if I reveal something that has worked for me, that means I'm going to lose the success that I've had. Right. And I think that could not be further from the truth. Does that mean I think you need to be an open book with everyone? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I think there is such power in supporting one another, that's how our industry will grow. That's how that's how, you know, when the pie gets bigger, so does everybody's piece. So let's work on making a really big pie.
Yes, I love that analogy. I've never heard that before. I love that. Yes, I agree. Not one bit corny to me. I love it. I was wondering too, did you ever have a question that you wish someone would have asked you? Because if they would have asked you, you would have been able to bring greater awareness and on your expertise and experience in this field?
It's a really, really interesting question. I don't think so, but I think if I could pivot that question just a little bit,
Absolutely.
something that I think gets kind of lost or is misunderstood as Canadians is whenever we hear the word designer, we see you know, dollar signs, and many of us go to a place of thinking that's inaccessible to me. I could never have that. And what I would love people to understand is that term designer just means creator. It just means, you know, founder. It is the person that has the vision for the thing. And we're so lucky to have so many fashion labels and fashion designers here in Canada that are incredibly accessible price point wise. Yeah. So I would love for people to park that paradigm a little bit and think of exploring our fashion industry with open eyes and not making assumptions on what we think the cost might be, because I think while there's always a spectrum, it is not as onerous as it might have been if you're thinking designer for a big fashion house that's long experienced.
All right, that's very nice. Okay, now we're at the end. We're at scenario time. You're in the middle of nowhere. You have no connections. You're starting over. Day one for Donna. So where does Donna, but you still know everything that you know today. Mm-hmm. So where does Donna start over? What's the first step you take to get back into this world?
Am I still working in fashion, or I've decided to work somewhere else?
No, you're not giving up fashion because you love.
I'm not giving up fashion. All right. So I've been transplanted to another city. I know no one. What am I going to do?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to find my tribe. I'm going to, you know, look for shops that I like what they carry and get to know the people who work there. I'm going to see if there is some sort of, you know, professional organization or community that has networking events that I could join and participate in. I'm going to find out, you know, where what the events are that happen in that city, where the people I want to know go to, and figure out how I get myself invited to those things. I'm going to find a way to connect and talk to the people that are in the world that I want to be in. So whether that is, you know, looking up on social media, you know, who are some of the influencers that live in that city, or who the local, you know, leaders are in terms of designers or marketing people, or, you know, magazine editors or blog writers, you know, get a sense of the industry, get a lay of the land as to the who's who and what's what, and go forth and meet.
Yes.
You know, like go forth and find out ways to start to get to know the people there. Awesome. I know I sound like a broken record, but community is so important.
People don't say that enough. You don't sound like a broken record. People need to hear that. And people are often more accessible than you think.
Oh my goodness, I completely agree. And I know, like, I don't want to diminish how nerve-wracking it can be to talk to people you don't know. However, I think most people are generous, and most people are happy to meet somebody new. Now, you don't, extend your hand and start with, hi, I'm Donna, and I really want to get to know you because I want to work in fashion. Like there is a
Add some to them before.
add some value to them. It's building relationships happen over time, not in a sprint. So there's an element of patience and understanding to that, I think, that is required. And like you're saying, that value to them could be just a pleasant conversation. It could be offering to help them with something that they've mentioned. It could be following up with an email and saying, it was such a pleasure speaking to you. Here's the title of that book I couldn't remember that we talked about. So, that's the kind of interactions that people appreciate. I know it can, there can be a sense of like, I just want to get out of the gates and I want to like go. But part of building relationships is understanding that it happens gradually. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that you can rush. So be patient, be generous.
Yes. Perfect. Yay. Great advice. Donna, thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. You're so welcome.
Have you. And I'm just so grateful that you were able to join us today. Our viewers are going to get a lot of value out of your amazing nuggets of information. Oh. So I appreciate you so much. And thank you to Donna Bishop, founder of Fashion Talks podcast and Green Beauty Inc. Please go check her out. Don't miss an episode. Oh. And thank you to all of our viewers for joining us today on East Coast Fashion Summit.
Congratulations on this platform that I know is just going to inspire and educate and support so many people in the industry. It is absolutely an honor and a privilege to be a voice on here. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Donna. I'm really ready. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. You take care. Have a great day.
You as well.
Get some good sleep. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.